Hello, I am. Oh my god, the door just opened. If you hear it, you hear it. It's the 4th, and we threw something on the grill. I am wearing Beyonce because this is the last time I truly felt patriotic. Missed that tour. Ready for her to get back in the lab. Hello, I'm Anastasia the Black Bookworm. Words. Hello, I am Anastasia the Black Bookworm, and welcome back to my channel. As I said, it is the 4th of July, meaning we're about halfway through the year, and I want to talk about the top 10 books that I've read in the year of our Lord 2026. Currently, I think I've read, also, please, I season to me. I'm just a girl, so ignore it. But currently, I've read about 50 books, maybe a little bit more, but let's just say 50 because that sounds nice, so far this year. And I narrowed it down to my top 10, and I have 5 of the physicals, which, wow, blessed girly. But I want to talk about my top 10 books so far this year. And most of them are 5 stars. I think one of them might be 4 stars, but so far, for the amount of books I've read, I've been pretty lucky with how many of them I loved. I also noticed that there's a theme here. A lot of them are second chance romances. I like a block spinning, apparently. I'm a retired block spinner, so here we are. If you have not already, please subscribe, stick around. I really like doing this, and I want to grow and keep doing this. And your support would mean the world to me, so thanks. Light spoilers, so keep that in mind. Let's start off. First and foremost, Score by Kennedy Ryan. It's the second book in the Harlem Renaissance series. It comes after Real. They are interconnected standalone, so technically you can read them out of order. However, wouldn't recommend it. I would definitely recommend you read Real first. They kind of happen concurrently, so you get like bits and pieces of what was happening in Real during Score. But this book follows Monk and Verity. They met in college. They had a very serious relationship, and they break up in a very just very crazy, very tumultuous, but it was very quick. So she up and leaves. Monk doesn't really know what's going on with her, but they disappear from each other, and they are reunited when they have to work on the set of this biopic, Dusty Blues biopic, and he works on the score and she works on the script. Like I said, it runs concurrent with Real. Kenny does a great job with breaking your heart and putting it back together in the story. This has LGBTQ plus rep because Verity is bi, and she also has bipolar. So we have mental health rep. Okay. But she has bipolar, and you see how that affects her relationship with herself, with the people around her, and how she has to come to terms with it, and like what it means for her personally, professionally, and romantically. I loved this book down. I loved it down. I cannot state how much I loved it. I was very fortunate enough to read the first version, loved it then, and listening to it now, I love it even more because I read the first version and then listened to the second version. Let me see if I can find it. Again, please ignore my nails. They are very dirty. But that's me. That's my name in there. Oh my God, it's blessings. But Kennedy does a great job with research. You can tell that she researches like what she's going to be talking about because it's discussed with such care, nuance, and just intelligence. So phenomenal book. Highly recommend. Again, read Real first. They are interconnected. You could read this first if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would read Real first. Or listen to the audiobooks. The audiobooks are phenomenal. Phenomenal. Next, The Ex Dilemma by Elle Wright. Again, another second chance romance. I told y'all there was a theme here. Don't know why, but I love second chance romances apparently. So this book follows Albany and Wes. They grew up being best friends. Their grandmothers were literally best friends, so they grew up together. And then they started dating when they got a little bit older. And after their first time, he disappears without a trace. She don't know what's going on. She's left to put herself back together again. Imagine a crushed teenage girl after her first time and the love of her life just up and leaves. Couldn't be me. But she leaves, she goes, she gets married. She doesn't know what happened with Wes or his family. Come to find out, his father was in some bad dealings. His father had recently died, and his grandmother was like, hey, y'all need to get out of town because I don't know what he had going on, but I don't want y'all to be in trouble. I want you to be safe. So they up and left the town for their safety. He comes back. I don't know why I said the town. It's literally Detroit. But he comes back, and she ends up coming back to the town 16 years later. And he had already been back. He was part of his family's business. She is hired by his grandmother to be a private investigator to figure out who is trying to mess with Wes's reputation. It's this anonymous social media account called Miss T, and she always posts about everything that Wes has going on. And Albany has to figure out if it's worth it because, one, she ain't got no money. She's newly divorced. She has no money. And two, she loved this man down. So she's trying to protect her mental health. So is she gonna get with him? Is she gonna help his life? Obviously it's a romance, but you get to see how it all comes together. This was my first Elle Wright book, so I was not familiar with her pen, but like I said, I had a great time. It was, I don't know, I just love a grown storyline where it's like the person is divorced or like they're later in life, like they've lived. Something about being grown, I'm just like, ooh, yeah, love it. But I really enjoyed seeing Wes kind of get himself back together and better himself for her, for himself too, but for Albany, and be vulnerable enough to like admit what was going on in his life, how he was wrong, and just grow and have real true character development. And Albany had to learn to trust, and it's very hard when you have to trust a person that put you into this heartbreak state for a reason. And so you get to see her figure that out, be soft, be vulnerable, and decide if she wants to give him her heart again. And I just thought it was really good. It's the first book in the Bachelor Life series, so I'm very excited for the rest of them because I liked everybody in this book, except for the people that I wasn't supposed to like. If they got on my nerves, it's because they were supposed to. So that is that. Next, The Art of Loving You by Natasha Bishop. And this is about Danny and Micah. They were former, like, almost lovers. There's tension there, but like they didn't really act on it. And when they were about to act on it, I believe Micah moved away. I believe, but I cannot fully remember. Anyways, they come back together because their mentor that they shared up and died. Not a spoiler. Literally happens at the beginning of the book. And so she puts them on this quest, this like treasure hunt quest, and they have to go from like city to city, flying on planes, driving in cars to figure out what pieces she had left behind specifically for them, and to basically throw the actual funeral that she wanted. Tanya, shout out to Tanya, my MVP of this book. What I really loved about this book was that it's again, interconnected standalones, but only for the week is the first book. This is the second one. I think just the feeling of it is completely different. Only for the week I would describe as like a fun vacation read that, yeah, they get on your nerves now because how's my sister marrying my ex-boyfriend? But the stakes are low. And not to say that like, you know, anything is life-threatening in this book. However, it's just deeper. It's more emotional. It's more vulnerable. And it was really, really beautiful. I think it was one of those things that it forces you to look at like what the true importance of like your life is, or the people in your life, how you want to be remembered, how people choose to remember you, how the things that happen in your past form the person that you are, and they could either make you or break you. And a lot of the times people don't see the complexities of everybody around them. Of course you see your own, but you know, they fully understand that Tanya actually lived a whole separate life before them, which they knew, but they got to see the intricacies, the positives, the negatives, all of that stuff when she put them on this journey. And of course, during the process, they come closer together, and it's just, I don't know, I love a second chance, as we've seen, because this is the third book, and literally they've all been second chances. Now, the next book, I don't have the physical yet, but I will be getting it. Big Girl Blitz by Danielle Allen. I listened to the audio. Wesley Siobhan, any audio that she does, I'm gonna give it 5 stars. But when she does the audios by herself, that means she gets to do like all the boy parts. I love it so much. I love her so much. So it's the third book in the Curve series, and it follows Jasmine, and she is back at her aunt's house taking care of her sick aunt. Again, we have a sick relative. I don't know what it is about death on the way, but my God, just makes a book. But she goes to take care of her aunt, and her aunt has this bucket list, and she's like, I want you to create a bucket list. We're gonna do a bucket list together. There's all these things that I want to do, and I want to make sure you live your life. So obviously it's like, it's got sad undertones because Jasmine loves her aunt down, and she's literally dying in front of her. And so on the first night that she's back in town, she goes to a bar. She sits next to this guy, or this guy sits next to her. Don't remember how it happened, but his name's Lamar. He's big, he's fine as fudge. That's all you need to know. Obviously not all, there's more to him, but their tension is palpable. I loved it. I loved them so much. I loved him so much. But I think that what I really loved about it was just, again, it was just handled with care. I love when you can see that an author cared about a character and her feelings, and, you know, readers as well, but really took care of this series and put her all into it. I love the friendship between Jasmine, Aaliyah, and Nina. I just love women in core groups. I think it's very essential to us as beings to have people that we're close with, especially other women that we are close with, and seeing them and seeing how they supported each other throughout the entirety of this series, I just love so much. I loved it so much. And I just love Danielle's pen. I literally have been trying to read everything that she's ever written, but that lady has been writing for a while. So I got a ways to go, but love it down. The next book, Struck Speechless by Tati Richardson, and it follows Jackie. She's this amazing sports agent, but she's not really great at relationships. And then her company is merging, her agency, excuse me, which is on the East Coast, is merging with an agency on the West Coast. And she gets reconnected with Antonio, who's another agent, and they had like a romantic fling in Vegas for one night, but then it ends really abruptly when she hears the other end of a phone call that he's on, and she's like, oh my God, you cheated on your wife with me. Not true, miscommunication, but she didn't give him the chance to explain. She disappears. So the fact that they are back into each other's lives like 11 years later, it's like they're trying to figure out how they're gonna work together, come together. It also has an element of magical realism because Jackie's voice is taken away from her, and she has to, you know, when she speaks what's on her heart, and in those moments that she wants to be in, her voice appears. So she has to get to that point. Tati is just like, I love her. I love the way she writes. I love the way she writes intimate scenes because she is nasty, and those scenes be nasty too, and I love it. But also, I like her elements of magical realism. If you read Big Girls Get Down by her, it was a short book, but I think that showcases how her brain works, how her creativity works. And I loved it. So having those elements of magical realism where it's like, oh, this main character all of a sudden can't speak for some reason. I think she handled that really well, and I enjoyed it, and I had a lot of fun. And I'm ready I need to actually go back and read. I think there's 2 of her books in her catalog that I haven't read yet that I need to go back and read. But I love her pen. I love her pen so much. Next, This Ain't Our First Rodeo by Liara Tamani. I think that's how you say her name. But it follows Josie and Sean. They meet at like a state fair in Texas. No, the rodeo, not state fair. Lord Jesus, I'm so sorry. The rodeo in Texas when they are like 16 years old, I want to say. And it's a cute little night. But then her parents find her because she wasn't supposed to be wandering off. She's supposed to be working at her parents' booth or restaurant, but she wandered off to go have a fun time. Her parents find her with this boy, and they're like, and snatch her up. She gets in trouble. She can't go nowhere by herself. No more. 3 years later, their paths cross again when Sean is hired by Josie's family to be the face of their new restaurant because the parents don't remember that this is the same little boy that they didn't like because they thought he was, you know, a no good, you know, rapscallion. But he's a professional bull rider. His stepfather is also a professional bull rider, so he takes after him, follows in his footsteps. And you learn a little bit more about Sean. His stepfather is actually in some really bad dealings. He has an addiction problem, he has a gambling problem, and he's asking Sean to basically throw the next, I don't know what it's called. It's not a fight. It's not a race. Competition, I guess, because everybody's betting on him to win. So he was like, if you lose, you know, we'll get all this money. You'll be able to buy this. I'm trying to buy you this business. Like, oh, it's just a lot going on. But this is YA. So I was not expecting for the conflicts to be conflicting the way they were. But it was, like I said, we had addiction issues. We had gambling issues. We had assault that was mentioned. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was very heavy. I didn't think it was going to be that heavy, especially because look at the cover. It's so cute and bright. But I enjoy a YA book that talks about issues that, you know, young adults do see. And it might not be as discussed as much as it should be. But I think this is a good way to get them to ask more questions, be curious, and learn about the consequences of the choices that you make. This was my first Liara Tamani book. I don't know, was this her first book? Shucks, I don't know. But this was my first book by her. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audio. They had cute little country accents. I loved the plot development. I loved that everything made sense, because it wasn't one of those things that was like, how are they gonna get back together 3 years later? It doesn't make sense. And he's big and famous, and like, it just seems like she did it for the plot. Like, no, everything came together in a way that was cohesive, and I really, really, really enjoyed that. You're Dead to Me, Reed Walker by Gwenyth. What is her last name? Gwenyth Reitz? I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry, Gwenyth. Sorry, girly pop. But this book follows Tessa and Reed. They are the valedictorian and salutatorian of their graduating high school class. They are academic rivals, at least in Tessa's eyes. But in Reed's, he's always thought, you know, cutie patootie, kind of love her down a little bit. Anyways, they go to a graduation party and they find themselves unexpectedly dead. But the whole the whole premise is them trying to work together and figure out, one, how they died, and how to, two, fully cross over to the other side. And the way that it's described is like a comedy, but I ended up giving it, I think, 4 stars because it wasn't really funny. It's a YA book, but the premise is very sad. You've got 2 kids that have died, and they're trying to figure out how. And they're also trying to go from one, you know, realm to the other. But I liked it. I liked that they actually dove into the feelings and the sadness of it, because they're seeing their loved ones grieve them. They see what that looks like when their parents, their siblings are just sad that, you know, they're gone. The premise was creative, and it was something that was new to me. And will I read more books like this? Maybe. I think that'd be cute for, like, you know, Halloween time or fall or whatever. I read it literally, I want to say, like in April or May. It was when I was packing up to move. But this was sad, but it stuck with me in a way that, unfortunately, I did have to add it to my top 10 of books. If it sits with me, I like it for that aspect. And would I recommend it? I would recommend it. My barometer of YA books, of if I really like it or if I really don't, is what I want my kids to read it. And I think I would, but I think I wouldn't let them think that it was something that was funny, because it's not. At least not to me anyways. But alas, we move. My next book is Not Just Friends by Grimm. I like this book because it was out of my comfort zone. It is a shy werewolf and a succubus. Well, like I said, out of my comfort zone. But I like the idea of just the juxtaposition of this big, strong, massive werewolf being shy and having anxiety. I really, really enjoyed that aspect. And then obviously a succubus is a succubus. If you don't know what that is, quick little summary right here. But she is a cam girl, and people, yes, you're just watching me? Okay. She's a cam girl, and she gets her energy from other people watching her, and that's how she is literally staying alive. Now, they end up living in the same apartment. They don't realize that they live in the same apartment, but he makes sex toys, and he sends her one anonymously. So she tries it out on camera. She loves it, and then she realizes, one, the cam work is not enough. She actually has to have that physicality of the relationship to make sure that she sustains life. and she runs into him, I think in like the lobby or something. They figure out who each other are, and then she's like, hey, one, we could do this thing on camera. Two, you could sell your toys, so this could be like marketing for you. And three, I would get more money. But he doesn't know that she literally is using him to live. But like I said, this was something that was not necessarily in my comfort zone, but I had a great time. Phenomenal time. It was rather long. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was, but I enjoyed every page, so I'm not necessarily complaining. However, if you find that you're reading it and it does get to be a little bit tedious, I can understand why. I think I gave it 5 stars, so 4 or 5. I'll check. But I think that the concept was something that was executed really beautifully. I liked that it was, like I said, I liked that it was this big, very innocent, but at the same time not, because he's making, you know, sex toys and toys for pleasure, but this innocent big werewolf and this this naturally flirtatious, confident person coming together. Not person, I guess being. Coming together and seeing how they can have this, would it be symbiotic relationship? Mutually beneficial relationship, we'll say that. I'm gonna do my Googles later and see if symbiotic was the right word or not. The next book that I read that really, really stuck with me was The Bone King and the Starling by Elizabeth Stevens. And was this my first Elizabeth Stevens book? I think so. First or second, but I'm gonna say first. But it came at a time when I was like in a slump. And I just put it on because I had the audio and I was like, let me just listen, let me see what's going on. It is what it is. I like to read books while I drive to work. However, I was not prepared for the time that I had. And it wasn't a long book. It was very short. I think it was maybe 3 hours. Less than 4 hours, I believe. But it's a Viking romance that follows Kalai and Starling. I believe is her name. But Kalai is the king of this whole entire area. And he goes and visits Winterburn, this town, essentially, in his kingdom, but he goes and visits because they're about to have like these games that they have annually, semi-annually. I don't know how often they have them. I think it's annually. But he goes to the town because it's always held in one of the locations in the area that he rules. And he sees her and literally saves her from assault the first night, but he has on a hood so she never sees his face. She just knows that he's huge but also a safe place. He sees her and he's like, oh, that's my wife. Thank you, gods. I love her down already. I don't know nothing about her. I just had to look at her and I know that that's mine for forever. The next day, he sees her again when they do this big feast, and she is essentially a slave. She's called a thrall, but she's a slave. So she's serving dinner to all the special guests that have come in, and the rulers of her little town line up all the girls that are supposed to be like eligible bachelorettes for him to have his way with for the night. And they're like, hey, you get your choice pick. Who do you want? And he's like, this is cute. I want her. That one over there. Everyone's like, hey, you know, the girls are right here. And he's like, right, but my girl's over there. And so he plucks her from obscurity, essentially, and was like, hey, girly pop, you're going to be my forever. She doesn't fully understand that. So she's just trying to enjoy him for the night that she thinks that he's going to have her. And she's like, you know what, I can play pretend, like this is gonna be fun for me, but I know after all this I'm gonna have to go back to like my slave work, and the rulers of our town are gonna get mad at me because they took me in when my parents died. They're gonna get mad at me for essentially being chosen, even though I had nothing to do with this. But Kalai makes sure that that doesn't happen. And that was one of the reasons why I really love this book. I love a man that defends a woman to the point where he will burn it all down to the ground. Love it. Slaughter a town on her behalf. Yes, please. More of it. So you see this big, strong man defending somebody that has never been in a position to be defended. In fact, her virginity was like plotted on. Somebody paid for it and was like, yeah, I'm gonna get that. That's mine. I'm gonna buy it. The same person that was trying to assault her had paid for her virginity. And so to see her go from this mistreatment to literally being worshipped, I loved it. I loved it so much. And like I said, it just came at a good time. It came when I needed a good, fun read. And that's exactly what it was. I would check triggers because like I said, there are mentions of assault and it does get pretty gory. at one point in time where I was listening and I was kind of like, oh my God. But a great time nonetheless. The last book in my top 10 of the first half of the year is, she's an oldie, but a goodie. Heartstopper by Oseman. I wanted to watch the show, and I had the first 2 books, so I was like, hey, before you watch the show, let's just read it. I also, before I read this book, hadn't touched a physical book since 2023. I say that very frequently, but it's true, and it's my truth, and I'm going to stand in it. The last physical book that I had read was Ace of Spades. And again, love that book down, 0 regrets, 10 out of 10, highly recommend every time. But that was 2023. How pregnant was I? That was a month before I gave birth. I was very pregnant, but that was the last time I had the ability to sit and read a physical book before my son was born. Anywho, this follows Charlie, who is an openly gay year 10. It's in Europe. And Nick, who is a year 11. They are friends. Charlie develops a crush, but he's like, oh my gosh, I have a crush on my straight friend. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then as their friendship develops, Charlie's like, hold on, I think my straight friend might like me back a little bit. What's happening here? I love friends to lovers. I think it's so cute to see how they like develop and see how those feelings grow and develop. And it was my first graphic novel. Not my last, because I did read the second one and I read the third one, and I'm waiting for the 4th and 5th one to come in the mail. Like I said, I liked it a lot. But they're navigating complicated feelings. They're teenagers. Charlie was outed. He didn't even come out. He was outed. So he's already very sensitive about, you know, who he is, how he's viewed, and his experience in school in the first place. And Nick is a rugby player. He's big, he's strong, he's popular, he has lots of friends. And so now he has to figure out, like, what is this thing that I'm feeling? What is this other side of me that I've never experienced? And he has to confront, you know, who he thought he was versus who he is. I love YA books because of the tension. I feel like the tension is real. You can't lean on smut to make their chemistry like real and palpable, because it's YA, so you have to build it out in a way that is believable, and I think this is done in a way that is so believable. It felt very much like I was back in high school. I'm like, oh, I remember when these feelings were like so big, and like the world at that time was just, oh my God, what does everybody think of me? And you're trying to survive one day at a time. You at some point you just like, I'd rather be like unnoticed, I'd rather fly under the radar. But then what it also looks like to have somebody that might have those, like that big friend group, and you're like, they would never pay attention to me. And then they do. And you have to figure out how you feel about that. If that's something you want to navigate, you have people around you saying like, hey, you know, just be careful, be safe, because it's already been rough for you, and I don't really trust this person. And you have to figure out, one, if they're trustworthy and how they fit into your experience of high school. And I think that this is done in such, like I said, such a believable way, such a fun way, in such a very relatable way. So yeah, those are my top 10 books for 2026 so far. Like I said, we're halfway through the year. Out of my 50 that I've read, those were my top 10. I would recommend all of them. I gave them 4 or 5 stars, and they stuck with me. And for the amount of books that I read, sometimes they stick with me, most of the times they don't. So the fact that these did, felt like I should tell you about them. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you found this video helpful, share it, please, so we can help somebody else. Each one reach one, you know? But I don't think I got a thumbnail. Actually, let's get a thumbnail before we go. And I always do the same thing. Okay, I hope we got something. I hope we got something. Or what if I just did, what if you guys just saw the cover? Then what? What now? Okay. I will talk to you guys later. We're out of here. Happy birthday, America. Sorry your party's so lame. Bye.